Happy Thursday, guys. This is Birth to Net Worth, episode 6. We have an exciting guest today, somebody that I've known for almost 2 years now through real estate. Extremely talented young lady based in Miami, or actually north of Miami, I believe. She'll correct me in a moment. And you'll notice that there's only my hairy beard on the screen. Jesse has gone camping this week, so he'll probably come back from the Alaskan wilderness with an even bigger woolly beard than I have, probably with some antlers and things along with him. So it'll just be me today. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in our wonderful guest, Toni Counts. Toni, welcome to Birth to Net Worth, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Very well. Well, awesome. Tell us a bit about your background, Toni. How did we meet, and what is it that you do, and give us a little background about how we came across one another.
So we met through Pace Morby, and I'm actually Pace Morby's bookkeeper. I have a bookkeeping service. I also have my own bookkeeping company where I have a handful of clients that I've been servicing over 3 years now. I limited my amount of clients because I don't like to jeopardize the quality of my work just for the sake of building myself up. So that's when I started the bookkeeping service so that I could continue to help business owners like yourself and just expand into sharing my knowledge of bookkeeping.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate you joining us today. So as you know, this is Birth to Net Worth. It's about helping adults, and through the adults, primarily parents, uncles, aunts, family members, etc., and friends become financially literate. And also the end goal is to bring financial literacy to the next generation that are graduating high school. So the conversation really focuses around not only financial literacy, but also mindset around money as well. So I know that you're a bookkeeper. You've got an extreme talent with numbers and finances, etc. And we were just on a Zoom call a couple of days ago with David Richter, who was a sort of a co-writer or a writer of a book called Profit First for Real Estate Investors. For those that you're not aware, Profit First was a concept brought to the fore by a gentleman named Mike McAllowitz, or MikeMotorbike.com to get to his website easily. He wrote a book called Profit First, which based on 5 bank accounts in one bank, 2 in another, to try and break down where businesses put their money when it comes in as income. So they've got operating expenses, tax account, operator income, profit, and just to basically set it out in a very logical way that makes sense for handling your money. So he's kind of created a financial literacy model for adults. But the reason I mentioned so much about that is that it really is centered around what I've been working with Toni. And, what do you see with your clients? Do all of them use Profit First? Do some of them use Profit First? Do you, suggest that's one of the things that they maybe use to both make your life easier and their working life a lot more pleasurable, where money's more visible and clear to what they're doing?
So I do have some clients that operate Profit First, like to the T, exactly the way the book has designed it. And when you do it exactly the way the book has designed it, it works wonderfully. But then I also have clients that, they have their own method of doing Profit First, and that's okay too. I mean, because it's really about just building that habit of just keeping your money separated. Because the clients that I do see that don't use Profit First and only operate out of one account, they tend to have more issues throughout the years when it comes to like big money purchases, especially a lot of the real estate investors. When you have these unexpected expenses for like a fix and flip or a rental property, when you have that money just stashed away waiting for that particular event to happen, it doesn't really affect you as much as if you don't have that separated account and you're just kind of like pulling from your operating expense for unexpected things. So
understood. Yeah. I mean, I'm not one of those first candidates that you spoke of, but I'm a hybrid between pretty much the Profit First model with a few additional implementations that I can make to really make that down to the T. And I think the next quarter I'll probably be putting everything in. But it's just really to gauge really how how adults that are businessmen and entrepreneurs are they really financially literate? Is this something that is obviously you being an amazing service to us to give us the clarity of what we have going on to categorize expenses and income? That gives us a great kind of dashboard of what we're looking at. But without that, I'm sure you've heard amazing stories, testimonials from people, not just using any bookkeeper, but you, particularly with that profit first model, where that's got to change their perspective on how they handle money. Obviously, that's just one system for business, could be implemented in that way or a similar way for personal use. How do you see money being handled differently for personal use versus business use?
I only have a few clients where I see their personal expenditures. Most of my clients, I only take care of their business accounts, but I do have 2 clients that I service almost like an executive assistant to them as well. So I see everything. Yeah. So they when they get to that level where they need like an executive assistant like that, they're pretty well managed with their money. Yeah. So but if I imagine if I saw the personal accounts of some of my clients, it would probably be similar to how I see their business accounts.
Understood. No, I read between the lines. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, this is where you are currently in your business life. This is how you see the different extremes of handling money and the mindsets towards money. Take us back to your childhood, your younger days, where you first became aware of money. What was your perspective on money from the perspectives of those around you? Maybe your parents, family members. Is some cultures talk about money a lot. Some cultures don't talk about money at all. How is your family's viewpoint and approach to money? Bless you, dog.
So my parents had different mindsets about money. My dad, he was always like a really, strategic saver. Every Saturday morning, I saw him sitting at the table, balancing his checkbook, writing out bills. My mother, on the other hand, God rest her soul, she was, when she had money, it was like there was a hole in her pocket. It just had to go somewhere. Yeah. So I had both extremes. So I could see, the stability from my dad and the way he was managing the finances. And then I could just see the mindset of my mother, the way that her mindset was more like, I can't take it with me when I'm gone. So spend. So growing up was just kind of
experiential.
Yes. Growing up, it was kind of like, in the beginning, my mother's way, I'm like, wow, this is fun, So, I mean, I'm sure everybody as they, come of age and start working in the corporate world, like they're all going to have mishaps with money in the beginning because, you go from being a college student, then getting a salary and you're like, wow, I can afford all this stuff now. And then it's just, your financial habits aren't really developed yet until you go through the experiences that kind of shape you into developing those habits.
Yeah. And it's very often failing forward in some of these cases, isn't it?
Yes, definitely.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So did you have siblings as well? Are you an only child?
I do have siblings. I have an older sister. I'm the second oldest. And then I have a younger brother and sister as well. So I'm actually the first one in my family that graduated college and actually the first one to hit 6 figures as well. So I come from a family where my siblings and I are second generation U.S. citizens. So my parents were first generation U.S. citizens and my grandparents were not U.S. citizens from Mexico.
Understood. Did you notice any differences in the habits between your grandparents, your parents, and your generation in mindset towards money and how that's used?
Yeah, actually I did, now that you mentioned that. My grandparents on my mother's side, my grandfather was really similar to my dad. He had a lot of structure and I could tell that he was the one managing the finances in the home. As far as my grandmother on my father's side, she kind of had a hard life. So, she was, one of those that just kind of like lived a simpler life. So, so definitely some differences there. But I've learned from all of those situations, just viewing from the outside in, at a younger age, you don't really understand, but as you get older, you can kind of put the pieces together.
Yeah. And between you and your siblings, you being the second, obviously is one before you, different kids have different experiences when you're the elder or elder of the sort of the generation. I can imagine that there's maybe early on in life, before you're really aware of money, there may be a little bit more than maybe when there's 2 more, 3 more children behind you. And now parents are trying to, survive and thrive with 4 children instead of 1. Then the experience would have changed. But I would imagine, unless there's a larger gap between the early and late children, maybe there's not.
So my younger brother and sister, they're 11 years younger than me, and then my older sister, she's 5 years older than me. So there's kind of some gaps there. But as far as like the way that they've developed their habits, I try to be a good influence on my siblings and kind of coach them and lead them along the way. But everybody learns on their own. It's one of those things like, when you become a new driver, like you're just not going to know how to drive by somebody explaining it to you. You just have to go out there and learn those experiences yourself.
Yeah, it's until nobody else is in the car with you when you really learn to drive. And I think that's the same with money. Once no one's kind of watching over you and guiding you, it's then you learn what it's really all about. Yes,
that's very true.
So it sounds like you got a fairly balanced and balanced experience of two extremes, experiential as we'll call it, and kind of the more frugal saving side of things. How have did you go through, and I'm not after specific incidents, but were there any occasions that you may have bent in one direction versus the other for a period of time? You said you enjoyed spending money for a period of time, and then obviously something kind of brought you onto the course that you are now, where now you're advising other people about what to do, not necessarily what to do with their money as far as spending it or investing it, but how to manage the money that does come in and make sure they keep as much of it as they can, in parallel with CPAs that I know you work hand in hand with a number of CPAs as well to support your clients.
Yes. So I think what really shaped me into kind of getting a full grip on my own spending habits was just seeing the clients that I was servicing and knowing their stories of how they started. It's actually really intriguing to hear like how some of my clients started. One in particular, started as a landscaper and then ended up becoming like a multimillionaire. So like kind of just seeing and hearing those stories, it kind of shifted my mindset to like, maybe I should kind of follow what they're doing, or maybe I should, it's like you want to just learn from somebody that's already been there and is where you want to be. So I think a lot of that, and even still today, like I learned so much from my clients that are in places that I want to be eventually. So that really helped me to form those, those kind of different mindsets for me as far as not spending on things that I normally would have. So
do you find that those from more humble beginnings are more diligent with their money versus people that not necessarily of means, but of middle class that had something but didn't necessarily have an uncomfortable life, might be a little bit more frivolous with their money?
Yeah, I think so. That seems to be the pattern. A lot of people, you hear it all the time, like a business will not survive like within the first 5 years. And that's because a lot of people, money starts to roll in and they don't really know what to do with it. They're kind of thinking that it's just going to continue rolling in. So it's just continuously going out at the same time. And then things happen, like recessions happen, the market shifts, and you just have to be prepared for that type of stuff. So I think it's just a learning process for everybody, because I've also had businesses in the past. I've actually had a failed business in the past. I had a construction management company with 2 business partners, and we did really well. We did subcontracting for the Army Corps of Engineers. So we were getting jobs, doing beach renourishment projects. And as that money was coming in, with 3 owners and different mindsets, the business it didn't last because we had one of our owners still had the mentality as an employee. So the more money we got, the more money he wanted to take. And it just, we just didn't we didn't last because of that. So so that was
Yeah.
one business that didn't really last for us, but it could have been a great thing. But it's just a lesson learned. And when you go into business with somebody, you got to make sure you really know them. It's like you become married to them.
Yeah. So not that you're advising people on becoming financially literate, but what have you seen out there for different age groups and even adults to learn about handling money, and what different areas of wisdom are necessary to sort of be more diligent and more aware of the possibilities of not just being a consumer? There's a consumer lifestyle, but then there's an extreme consumer lifestyle, which, instant gratification, 0% finance, leave the store today, pay in 5 years, and they forget until the day after the 5 years is up. And then suddenly they've got 5 years of interest, which they've tripled the value, the cost of their product.
Right.
There's obviously very different extremes. There's the Dave Ramsey sort that just want to save up for everything and miss so many opportunities in life. What resources are there out there that you've seen to aid? Primarily, we just keep finding that it's the adults are the problem. We can't just encourage adults to create financial literacy for their kids without creating financial literacy for themselves. And I think there's a great unawareness or lack of awareness in adults that they're not financially literate. They're just getting by paycheck to paycheck. So we're looking for ideas, and I've done a bunch of research. Like I showed you the other day, my money bunnies for the elementary school age by Mike. Profit First is effectively a template for a business, but it's not necessarily explaining more about what the difference between assets and liabilities are. And I'm sure I'm probably going to lead into you speaking of Kiyosaki's book in a moment, but what have you seen out there for different age groups that you might be aware of?
So a lot of my financial literacy just came from reading books, and then just from observing the habits of my clients. Because I do have clients on the other spectrum where they have a lot of credit card debt, and then I see the struggles that they go through when they have big money coming in. Do I pay the credit card down, or do I keep going? So a lot of that was how I learned, just by observing, and then also reading books like the Millionaire Mindset. That one was a really good book for me to
love
read.
that one.
Yeah, because that one really goes back to your childhood and explains like how you develop your financial habits by watching, how your parents handled money. So I really liked that, because that opened my eyes to see the differences between, how my dad was with money and how my mom was with money. As far as any other resources, really, like, just find somebody that's already where you want to be, and then just follow them. They've already got the blueprint for you. Just follow their lead. Just take any instruction that you can. Reach out to them, ask questions. A lot of people that are wealthy, they want to help others to get to where they are as well.
Yeah, I think that's, for the entrepreneurial mind, I think that's probably a lot easier to ask for help, where people may be embarrassed about their financial situation, or just not aware that other people are willing to help, where maybe they're living more in the sort of survival energy, where they feel threatened by everything and they don't know what to do. And really, I think at that level, the only financial literacy or financial education at that point is sometimes credit counseling. When you've got an overwhelming amount of debt where you have to surrender to, I can't do this anymore, you go to a credit counseling agency and they negotiate with your credit cards, or tell you not to pay for 3 or 4 months so they can close the account, and then put you on a payment scheme, which you pay up the butthole for as well. But sometimes that's the only thing that happens. And I don't know the percentage of people that come out the other side of it as reformed, and how many come through just the other side and are in the same position again within 2 or 3 years. It's like the lottery winners. Within 2 or 3 years, many of them are bankrupt, or at least in the same position they were before the win, within a very short space of time.
Yeah, same with people that file bankruptcy. There are people that file multiple bankruptcies, and you would think that somebody would learn from the first one to know what not to do for to be in that situation again. But it happens. You hear it all the time, people filing bankruptcy, and then 10 years later, again, another bankruptcy.
Yeah, I think that's all too common. I think sometimes it's used as a tool in some cases, unfortunately, because it's, I'm not making a judgment, but maybe there are some abuses of the system, as there are of any system. But
Exactly.
I think that can sometimes be used as a tool. But so looking into books that you read, you mentioned Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, Harv Ecker. That's one of my favorite books. I love his voice and his character in the book, and I think there are definitely benefits and drawbacks to listening to Audible. You get to very often hear the author, and you really get the character. Sometimes they throw some extra information, like David Goggins' book. There was a little extra bit in there. I think Mike Michalowicz put some extra stuff in Pumpkin Plan, or one of those books that he did. But what books have you come across? I mean, I mentioned
The Richest Man in Babylon. That's a good one too.
Great book.
I like that book, yes, because that really teaches you the concept of, like, taking a portion of what you're earning and then reserving it off to the side.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
that's a really good one. And then Profit First, of course, everybody's read Profit First. And, Profit First doesn't necessarily have to be just for business. Like, you could just take those habits and shift them to your personal accounts. I do it all the time. And I even have my kids do it. I'm like, just even if you just have another savings account to the side, I tell my son, like, anything that comes in, just start low. Like, put 1% of that into your savings account. Every time you get money, 1% in there, 1% in there. As you see it grow, that's going to excite you. That's going to get you addicted to just, see that account grow. And then maybe, 6 months from now, up it to 2%. Next thing you know, you'll be up to like 5, 8, 10% that you're saving. And then it's just going to continuously grow, because my son, he's 26 years old. So, he hasn't bought his first home yet, but that's one of his goals to do. And I try to instill this in him, like, just, it might seem like a little bit that you're saving now, but as it grows, you're going to be surprised to see how quickly that account will grow.
Yeah. So what product, we're talking about kind of older child things now. What products out there are kind of adults using to, prepare for retirement and invest their money? I know I've got Whole Life. I've got a self-directed IRA. What other products are out there that adults are using to sort of help, not put their money in places where the tax code is favorable as far as long-term, building of wealth towards retirement? What have you seen out there?
I see a lot of the younger generation investing in like crypto and Robinhood. I know the stocks right now aren't doing too well, but about a year or so back they were doing great. But I see a lot of kids getting involved in that, especially now that it's really easy to download the Robinhood app and then just kind of like play around with stocks and stuff like that. I always try to tell people too, especially the younger generation, like, develop a skill and offer it as a business. It's so easy to start a business, and then you just become independent, and you'd be surprised, like, if you have a skill and you can solve problems, I mean, that's really all you need. Like, if you're good at what you do and you're a good person, like, business is just going to come to you. And I feel like that's just right. I mean, because you can't, in this day and age, you can't just live off of a W-2 salary anymore. You have to have you have to be building something on the side. You have to have a side hustle. You have to have something to supplement that income, because it's just not enough anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially be single. I mean, I think in the 60s, 70s, it started changing definitely through the 80s, where the affordability of homes wasn't possible for a single person. They had to be, husband and wife had to be working rather than, one of the two parties. And, that's just grown even more with inflation and cost of living rises. I don't think that's going to stop.
No, that's definitely not going to stop. Yeah. I mean, gas is at its highest that it's ever been historically. Yeah. It's costing me more than double to fill up my car now.
Yeah.
And it just makes you wonder, like, how is, somebody that does live check to check, like, how are they dealing with this right now? It's pretty sad. I mean, the price of groceries is just ridiculous, Yeah,
it is crazy. So what I've been looking at recently is the fact that whole life policies, like Kirk was talking about in the recent podcast that he did, Kirk Hortle.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
He's got whole life policies for his baby, his children. So if we did that so early for our kids and even just made it a $10 a month premium for these kids, imagine by the time they get to 18 and we've been able to invest some of those funds for them, and they've got, a substantial, maybe it's 50,000, maybe it's 20,000, who knows, in that hockey curve at that point. Self-directed IRAs, I believe, can be opened at a very young age, so that kids can again start maybe 10 years before they might otherwise start saving for retirement or having funds that they can actually go and invest. How do you think it would be accepted with some of these entrepreneurs, particularly starting up similar products like self-directed IRAs, whole life, that type of thing, with their kids at an early age, where they can actually invest together in real estate, whether it's acquiring assets that they completely own, or whether it's investing in other people's projects where they can get a return, whether it's a debt partners or an equity partner, where they can maybe also get tax relief as well from depreciation and even charitable donations from that, which also still builds up their policy. Do you talk to any of your clients or hear about that with your clients?
Yeah, and I actually have one client that has a whole life policy, but I do have other clients that have the self-directed IRAs. I did have a client that actually I have another one right now that there's a way that you can add your children to the payroll of your business. And that becomes a good tax strategy for you as well, because as long as you don't pay them over a certain amount, then the income becomes non-taxable, and then they end up getting a tax refund. And then it also benefits you as the business owner to pay those that salary to your children. Yeah. And another tool that I've seen recently too is that people are adding their children as additional card holders to their credit cards, and then that builds up their credit as well. Even though they're not the ones that are applying for the credit, they're added as additional card holders. And then it's just, it's building up their credit. Maybe you get to a point where you can trust them and actually give them a credit card. I actually, when my daughter went away to college, I helped her get a Discover card for her. And I've taught her too, really well, like how to manage that. And, money that she got a lot of scholarships because she's really exceptionally smart. And so she was getting basically extra funds every semester. And we opened up a savings account, and then we would just leave her just enough for her to get by, and then we would put the rest in savings. And then I would send her snapshots of, this is how much you have in your savings. And she liked to see that account build up. And so I helped her get her first Discover card. And I've, showed her and explained to her, that this is very important for you to manage, and it can affect your life very negatively if you don't manage it correctly. So she's done really well so far. And I'm really impressed with that. So
that's awesome. So there's a lot of strategies out there, but I've been talking with a couple of people about, we want to either buy rental properties for ourselves, have a portfolio that we kind of, give our kids through inheritance at some point. I think these are some of the ways that we could do that investment with our kids, to invest in rental property. So it's almost like a relay race. So you're building the parents financially literate. They got an idea about what they want to do for their retirement plan and their long-term passive income. But if they can invest with their kids are learning along the way that daddy's got 2, 3, 4 houses. And by the time that the inheritance comes, or at least the retirement where the dad or mum doesn't want to deal with managing the property anymore, they've kind of handed over the baton to the child that already knows what depreciation is, what the cash flow is, how to manage the vacancy and repairs and all of those things, so that they can just kind of transition seamlessly, instead of, at a passing that I often see with probate cases, there's 2 or 3 different siblings and none of them are on the same page. One wants cash right now because they're terrible with money. One's willing to wait, but they have to come to some sort of agreement on what goes on. But again, that's selling the asset instead of having a cash flowing asset, which could be a very long-term wealth building tool for these people.
Exactly. Yes, definitely.
So wonderful. So I've covered all of the ground. I think we've done really well. The conversation's been amazing. What else would you like to share with us about your experiences with financial matters, families, not necessarily specific clients, but just humanity in general with money? What have you noticed? Has there been any changes over the last 10, 20 years that you've noticed in habits?
I do notice, I noticed that when you can always tell when somebody is bad with money. I mean, at least I can, because they're more concerned about things like name brands or flashy stuff, or just trying to like impress others, living beyond their means. And when I started working in this industry, servicing a lot of like high level investors and wealthy clients and helping them manage their money, it was really shocking, because I always had this impression of wealthy people that, they were real flashy and arrogant and, this and that. And really, they're just normal people. They're just like walking around you all the time. And you won't even realize that they're a wealthy person, because they blend right in. And that's what I notice, is that somebody that is very wealthy and good with their money, they're not trying to show it. They're just living among us, and you don't even realize it. But the ones that are not very good managing money, it's like they're trying to prove all the time that
it's the wannabes.
Exactly.
And they think that they should be, because they're in survival energy ultimately.
Right, exactly. So it's more about just trying to make an impression, and then not realizing the long-term consequences of those decisions.
There's an expression I heard a few years ago: people that buy things that they don't need with money they don't have to impress people they don't like.
Yes, exactly. There's a lot of people stuck in that phase right now, and hopefully they can smarten up and get out of it.
Absolutely. Well, Toni, thanks so much for spending your valuable time with us. I really appreciate you. I'm sure we'll connect again in the next couple of weeks. But thank you so much for joining us. Not sure we have on next week. I think I've got a couple of people lined up. We're just scheduling people, but you've been great value, and certainly your insight is immeasurable. Thank you so much, Toni.
Thank you, Trystan.
Appreciate you. Well, until next time, guys, have a great week, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Take care. Bye-bye.